if you're okay with that, Chair Reddick.
Yes, please.
All right. So I just would like to, good evening and welcome to the January 25th, 2022 Half Moon Bay Planning Commission. We have a couple items to go over before we officially start this meeting tonight. This meeting is being, this meeting is live on Comcast Local Channel 27 and on the Pacific Coast TV's website. We do have a few attendees in the audience, so just want to let you know that you do have the opportunity to speak. Attendees will be acknowledged by the chair during the general public comment section, and then again during public comment on the specific items that we speak or that they speak upon this evening. During those times, you'll want to go ahead and raise your hand with the raise hand icon, and I will assist the chair with the public comments at that time. If you've dialed in on telephone, please push *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise and unraise your hand. Otherwise, computer tablets, phones, etc. have the icon raise hand feature on that. 3 minutes will be given for each commenter and a timer will show up on the screen. I believe there were no public comments, but there were Planning Commission questions and concerns. And I believe that Doug either reached out to the planning commissioners and he will be also covering some of those topics in his presentation this evening. I thank you for your patience during our continued remote meeting platform. And I will now hand it over to Chair Reddick to officially begin this evening's meeting.
Thank you, Bridget. As Bridget said, it's my pleasure to call to order this meeting of the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission for January 25, 2022. And will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to get things started? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Bridget, if you will please call the roll.
Yes. Commissioner Hernandez?
Present.
Commissioner Gorn?
I'm here.
Commissioner Benjamin?
Also here.
Vice Chair Polgar?
Here.
And Chair Reddick?
Here.
You have everyone present this evening.
Thank you. That brings us to consideration of the minutes of our last meeting, which was January 11th of this year. Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes, thank you, and good evening. Just a tiny little nit in the discussion of the tree that was placed on, that we talked about at the last meeting. And the idea is that it would be potentially staked to a flat area in the riparian corridor. And the notes were that was so that it would be stabilizing the bank. In fact, it's just that we're recycling the nutrients. So other than that, I was fine with them and happy to move that they're approved if no one else has any corrections.
I second the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gorn?
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Polgar?
Yes.
And Chair Reddick?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the election of a new chair for the term, which is beginning this month. And this is an item that we continued from the January 11th meeting. I'm sure everyone's ready to take it up and discuss now. I see Commissioner Benjamin's hand up.
Yes, I'm going to nominate Commissioner Gorn in case he's open to it.
And I would second the motion if he's open to it.
Thank you. I guess that's a good opportunity for Commissioner Gorn to respond.
Yeah, I'm open to it. I was taken aback when Sarah didn't want to do that because I thought she would be the ideal for the chair. But Yeah, I'm happy to take that up.
Very good.
So I will do a roll call.
Please.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Polgar,
Yes.
and Chair Reddick.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I pass the gavel to you, Chair Gorn.
Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Up and running.
So I guess first on our agenda is hearing from anyone in the audience.
Through the chair.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Oh, we need to take care of the vice chairmanship position
Oh, yeah, okay.
as the next order of business.
So let's open up vice chair.
Commissioner Benjamin.
I wonder if Commissioner Polgar would be up to this lesser responsibility. She'd be awesome. I nominate her.
I am going to, I'm going to pass, but thank you. I appreciate the confidence, but I'm going to see if anybody else would be up for this.
In that case, I'm going to nominate Commissioner Hernandez.
I'm willing to accept the position of vice chair.
I second it.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Polgar,
Yes.
and Chair Reddick.
Well, I'm not the chair, but I do vote yes.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We're all getting used to these new rules now. Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Reddick.
I vote yes.
Motion approved. We have Vice Chair Hernandez.
I'm happy to be the chairman of vice, and congratulations, Chairman Gorn, on being the chairman.
Thank you. I'll do my best. In a way, you four have such a fund of knowledge, such a great fund of knowledge. Like what I know I'm really good at is summing things up and taking something that's complicated and pulling out what, trying to make it clear. So in a way, it's a perfect position for me because I get to hear you guys first. So that's great. Thank you. So can we go to the public comment part?
Yes.
Open up public comment. Is there anybody there?
I've seen no one raising their hand. This is the time to do that if anyone is willing or wants to. I believe that that I recognize names that might be applicants. So,
okay. So we won't open that, and we will go to the first and only item.
Correct.
And that's Doug Garrison's.
Hi, I'm Doug Garrison. Let me get the PowerPoint up here. And I'm a senior planner with City of Half Moon Bay. This is project at 525 Kelly Avenue. It's a cell tower replacement. The applicant in this case is Castle Rock. They operate the cell tower, which is on leased land. Pacific Bell owns the actual property, and the building there is for their switching equipment. Because this item got continued a couple of times, I feel like I owe a little bit of explanation here. This project was originally scheduled for the December 14th Planning Commission hearing. We continued it to a date certain to January 11th, the next meeting. And then on January 11th, we continued it to tonight, January 25th. So just to make it clear, the December 14th hearing was properly noticed, and we did continue it to a date certain each time after that. And I also just want to clarify that I requested the continuations. There was nothing really going on in the background as far as large technical issues or protracted negotiations. It was simply December was a busy, bad health month for me, and I just didn't have it in me. I do want to note that I brought this up with the applicant each time. They were pretty gracious about the whole thing. Under some federal regulations, they really have a fair amount of leverage as far as demanding that we make a decision in a short amount of time, and they agreed to continue it each time. So I just want to acknowledge that, and that this was just strictly, a health thing. So the location, nondescript building right on Kelly Avenue across from the Boys and Girls Club. It's been the Pacific Bell property since, I think, 1978. It's pretty much all their switching equipment. It's not really set up for a lot of people in there. It's all electrical stuff. Couple of photos. This is the rear of the building. You can see the existing tower. It's kind of over here on the left-hand side. There were ground-based cabinets, that sort of thing, are along the rear of the building. This is from out on Kelly Avenue. You can see it's about as nondescript a telephone company building as you'll find. You can see the existing tower in the background. This is standing pretty much in front of the bike workshop, looking down the private entranceway into Shoreline Station and to the parking lot for the Pacific Bell building. This is where the replacement tower would go. And you can see there are some mature, healthy Monterey cypress trees here. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit. This is looking back towards Kelly, and you can see this tree here just has its multiple trunks. These branches, they extend out probably close to 50 feet. And so that was one concern with getting the tower in here in construction. Was it going to damage the tree? This is looking a little bit further north. There's another tree here, branches come back this way. These are the tips of those branches I was just pointing at in the previous slide. And I went out there yesterday just because I haven't been able to go to Half Moon Bay for quite a while, and I wanted to rewalk the site and make sure I remembered things correctly and take a few photos. And the proposed tower, if you look on the site plan, it's just a few feet in from the end of this awning here, which lines up pretty well with about the only clear sky you see through here. So it is about as good a location as you can find in that part of the property. I think there probably will be a little bit of trimming on the ends of these branches, but I don't anticipate there would be anything major involving those trees. The ground-based cabinets, all of that would extend from the tower back towards the rear of the building. They're up against the side of the building. So one thing, speaking of trees, I am going to recommend that we replace one existing condition of approval, C.17. This one deals with tree protection and replacement. And as I went back and reviewed that and went to the site, I realized that in my haste, instead of pasting in sort of our generic tree protection condition, I had borrowed one from a project that was a little more specific to that project, and it didn't make a lot of sense for this project. So essentially, I'm changing that one, had specific requirements that came from an arborist report for tree protection. And when we get the arborist report for this project, they may have somewhat different protections. So it seemed inappropriate. So this one, just the short version is, requires an arborist report, has to be approved by the community development director before they start construction. That's to ensure there's no damage to the roots or the trees. I don't think we need to go through this word by word right now, but as we get through the comment period and a little bit closer to making a motion, if any of the commissioners want to go through this in a little more detail, that would probably be a good time to do it. Much of the staff report on this gets into the regulatory framework for this project because it's a little bit different than what we normally deal with. Because of federal law, our discretion is limited compared to most projects we deal with. So the relevant legislation is the 1996 Telecommunications Act, and then the 2012 Spectrum Act, specifically Section 6409. And then there are any number of FCC implementation rules and interpretations, which are meant to provide clarity and guidance for how to implement the legislation. The nutshell version of this under Section 6409 is if you have an existing facility, you want to convert it to a co-location facility that would, instead of having one set of antennas for one cell carrier, you could have more than that. And if you have to increase the height of the tower, you have to meet essentially 3 criteria. And if you meet those, then the local jurisdiction has to approve the project. They really can't deny it. So in this case, the project does meet those criteria. There were some questions from the commissioners about how you calculate some of the height things. And so I'll go through that in another slide. But essentially, if the existing antenna, you can go up to 20 feet from the top of that antenna to the bottom of the new antenna. And then the actual antenna and the tower can still extend up beyond that 20 feet. The only thing that really matters in the FCC interpretation is the distance from the top of the existing antenna to the bottom of the new one. Has to be on the same property, and that's essentially it. So in this case, there's the existing tower is 48 feet tall to the top of their antennas. For the proposed tower, the height to the bottom of the new antennas is a little under 54 feet. So essentially, that's about 6 feet. So it's well below the 20-foot maximum they could have. So this tower, it could be 10 or more feet taller, and it would still meet the criteria, and we would still have to approve it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. As far as these were all attached to the staff reports, I'm not going to go through them. I just want to note that some of the materials submitted with the application, the plans, the visual simulations, an alternative location study, and the radio emissions compliance report are available. As we get a little bit further into the hearing, if any of the commissioners want to see a specific sheet in the plan set or one of the visual simulations, those are loaded up on my computer. We can go there. I'm not going to go through it all in the presentation, but later on, if you want to, we can get into that. So as Bridget mentioned, we got a couple of questions and comments from some of the planning commissioners, and I responded to them directly this afternoon. I do have a little more information to report. As I mentioned, some of the questions concerned how you calculate what the height of the new tower could be, and we've gone through that. The other ones were, a lot of people are asking, why is this potentially going to be disguised as a eucalyptus tree when it's all cypress trees there? Couldn't this pole be disguised as a Monterey cypress or a pine tree? So I did talk to the applicant this afternoon. He said Monterey cypress is probably not feasible for a number of reasons, but a pine model would be that they've done a lot of pine monopoles, especially up around Lake Tahoe. I would note that I have experience with those from back in the 90s, and I think that's what a lot of people think of. And those, they weren't that good. They look more like modern sculpture than pine trees. They have improved a fair amount. And they did send me a photo of that. I'll show you what they look like. The other concern was about some of the radio frequency. And because this is right next door to the Abundance Grace facility, there was some concern just from a social equity standpoint that we're not treating, a nonprofit that works with homeless people differently than if it was some other type of land use. So the applicant is available to answer questions tonight. They also have their radio frequency consultant available to answer specific questions on that. The short answer in talking to them today was that would not affect the Abundant Grace building. That in fact, since the antennas are directed towards the highway and other places like that, being down low and close to the antenna may well be the safest place to be, but I'll let them get into the details on that. So here's one of their monopole trees. Like I said, it's a little hard to tell from the photo, but they are appear to be a marked improvement over some of the fake pine trees I approved back in the 90s. I will admit that. And, as we get into how does this project work with our local policies and regulations, I think the first question is, why are we even going through this review of policy consistency if we have to approve it to begin with? And part of this was that in doing the research on the existing facility, the permit history was very murky. For example, the existing tower is 48 feet tall. The zoning limit there is 36 feet. And we have no record of, we know the city approved it, but we don't know through what mechanism. So as much as anything, this cleans up the record for everybody. We have a fresh coastal development permit and use permit. And we've gone through all the findings with our local regulations and policies. If there was something that was not consistent with our regulations, like, for example, the height limit, we put it very clearly in the record that that's because it's preempted by federal law. So I think that will help everybody going forward, that we just have a clean record on this. I'd also note that even though the city basically can't deny the project, we do have some discretionary decision-making authority. And so things like, if you don't want a eucalyptus tree, you'd rather a pine tree, that's, I think, within their purview. And there are some other issues that it was worth going through this exercise. And I think the important part of this is that I went through the whole thing. This project does basically comply with our land use plan policy, our zoning regulations. One item that comes up in both the new land use plan and the zoning code is the importance of co-location. That's listed as an important objective in both of those documents. Much of the regulations are written around ensuring that these facilities are open for co-location by different cell phone carriers. And so it certainly achieves that goal. There are other questions about aesthetics. And if you look in the newly adopted land use plan, they recommend using existing vegetation and features to screen the new facility. They actually note that tree disguise for these facilities or other natural forms may be an appropriate use. The zoning code, which has not been updated, doesn't prohibit a tree disguised monopole, but it discourages that. And there are some discretions over color of the materials and that sort of thing. And so those are things that the Planning Commission does have some discretion to weigh in on. As far as the basic zoning, these types of facilities are allowed in the commercial downtown district. Based on the CD zoning, you could put one in without a use permit. However, under our use permit section of the zoning code, you do need a use permit, and it gets a little convoluted, but it's in the staff report. The only thing that really, as I mentioned, wasn't consistent was the height, which is 36 feet in this district. But again, the federal law preempts our ordinance, so we can't enforce that 36-foot height limit anyway. Other details under state law, there's a requirement from a couple years ago with all the wildfires that all wireless facilities have an emergency backup generator to reduce disruptions during natural disasters. The state law is open-ended as to what type of generator it is. Our zoning ordinance discourages the use of diesel-fueled generators. In this case, the applicant had originally proposed a diesel generator. After we discussed it, they agreed to switch it over to natural gas. So the conclusion is that it basically complies with our regulations, considering the limitations imposed on us by the federal laws. And so staff's recommending that the Planning Commission review the different options as to whether they prefer just a bare tower or one disguised like a tree. If it's a tree, do you like eucalyptus trees or pine trees? And then approve the coastal development permit and the use permit. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and also the applicant and their experts are also available if you want to get into the details on the technical issues.
Thanks, Doug. Just before we get started, just for the record, I've had a couple of people raise concerns about this project, but they were raising concerns about the wrong project. This has nothing to do with the high school. So just to be clear for the record and for everyone listening. So we got a couple of hands. Vice Chair Hernandez. Clarifying
Thank you,
question.
Commissioner Gorn. And Doug, thank you for the wonderful presentation and the very detailed staff report. And thank you for responding to the questions I submitted in advance. If the Planning Commission were willing to move forward with a tree disguise, is the applicant comfortable with a pine tree versus a eucalyptus, given that all the trees on the site are Monterey cypress and the ones in the nearby area are largely either pine or Monterey cypress? Is that something the applicant would be comfortable moving forward with?
I'll let them respond to that, but from my conversation, they're generally okay with the pine. There would be a little bit of a setback for some technical reasons, but I'll let them get into that. I believe that's generally acceptable.
And one other follow-up question, which I think you addressed very clearly, which is the folks who are working in the nearby Abundant Grace property wouldn't be exposed to undue radiation from the cell tower as it's proposed. Is that correct?
I'm not an expert in that, but from my reading of the report, that's true. And also, they do have their consultant who prepares those reports available to confirm that is a correct statement. I would defer to the expert on that one.
Okay, very good. Those are the follow-up questions I have.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gorn. So I'm interested in learning more about the noise produced by the Generac generator. I had a brief conversation with Doug earlier this afternoon, but since it was material to my thinking about the project, I wanted to be sure to bring it up. I was interested in whether the applicant had considered a fuel cell technology, which also runs on natural gas, but might be quieter if it were feasible. So no shade cast, Doug. I think that's an appropriate question for the applicant. Just wanted to put it in the mix so that when we have the public hearing, we can hear a little bit about that. Also, I wanted to ask about the interaction, supposing for the sake of just hypothetically that this project is approved, how much does the coverage of this site overlap with the coverage of other cell sites that are likely to come before the Planning Commission in the near term?
The consultant may be able to add to that. I would note that it gets a little bit confusing because AT&T, for example, uses different consultants to handle their permitting for different sites. The only thing I can add is that there is, through AT&T and a different consultant, there is going to be an application being resubmitted shortly for some 5G small antenna sites, but they sort of serve a different purpose than the tall tower, so I don't know that that really affects. It's kind of apples and oranges. But yeah, that's all I can offer on that one.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Gorn. No further questions at this time.
Any other commissioners? Clarifying questions? I did wonder, Doug, if there's any other shots of the pine tree disguise. I know that's where we're kind of headed, but it's hard to tell from that one shot. Is there anything that's closer, or like, should we look on the web at pine tree examples? I'm not sure.
I just received that one about 10 minutes before the meeting started. The applicant may be able to refer us to a source to look at this, but that's the only one I have right now.
So maybe we want to, I guess we have to hear from, is there anyone who has questions in the public? Let's go to that one first.
Doug, you can clarify, but I believe Jason Osborne is part of the consulting firm or the group, I would think, or do you know?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so it looks like Commissioner Gorn, I just have the applicant that's raising his hand.
Well, then we have a couple of questions for the applicant. Let's put them on.
All right.
Thank you.
Excuse me, through the chair, I think just as a point of order, it might make most sense just to open the public comment at this point, and then the applicant can either give its presentation if you want to hear from them, and then commissioners can ask questions.
Thank you, Winter.
You're welcome.
So we can now open this for public comment. There we go.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
Yep, no, go ahead.
This is Jason Osborne with Crown Castle. I just first and foremost, I want to say what a pleasure it's been working with Doug over the last number of months. Just over to work with, and staff report was wonderful. And anyway, enough about that. I'm not sure the format, how you guys will end up doing this, but I did make comments, first of all, from all the commissioners, and I'm happy to address those first. Would that be sort of how we should do it? Okay. As far as your comments initially, Mr. Hernandez, as far as the applicant's concerned, yeah, we're 100% in favor of utilizing a monopine here. Ultimately, no real constraints. One of the constraints we did have was utilizing a cypress And we haven't done a whole lot of those. And what it does is it limits the number of antennas you can utilize, which would cause potentially the need for additional cell sites in the area and all that sort of stuff. So, and quite frankly, they just don't look that good yet. I will be candid. We've been doing the monopines for, close to 23 years now. I did a number of them in Tahoe, and they weren't as pretty as they are now. As far as other locations that we could find them, I just actually Googled them. This is really all I did. I just kind of found out today that potentially we'd be looking at a monopine situation. So I wasn't really prepared, but they look amazing, honestly, at this point. I mean, obviously we're not fooling anybody. They're not a real tree, but they look very stealth. Let's see. Commissioner Benjamin had a question about fuel cell. That is a similar story as far as AT&T and our technology right now is just not quite there in the space that we would need to utilize a fuel cell generator. It would take up too much space at this point. I know that our generator does adhere to noise standards, and obviously we'd be happy to test that as well and come up with any abatement issues. It would only be running during emergency situations. So I will say that, obviously we want to adhere to any noise standards, but our goal is to provide and continue cell phone coverage during an emergency. That's our main goal. But we would adhere to any sort of noise standards. Let's see, Commissioner Benjamin also had a comment about overlapping coverage, and I presume you were speaking directly of just AT&T sites, correct? Okay, so this site obviously would, I'll use the word intertwine with the existing network. Cells are basically as they seem. It's a series of cells that basically hand off to each other, and this is going to provide more robust coverage in the area, and it will tie in with the existing facilities. Now, Doug had also mentioned a small cell initiative that's going on with 5G small cell sites that's more centrally located to downtown. Those sites as well obviously would integrate with this site as well, but they are sort of a different, one's trying to cover sort of in-building solutions, and this is trying to cover the highways and the area surrounding the town, if that makes sense. I think that was it. I think I got them all.
Well, the issues about radio frequency.
Oh, yes. I am no radio frequency expert, but I do have Raj Mathur on the line with me. He's from Hammond and Edison. He completed the EMF study, and he could address any of those questions, in our adherence to federal law. But I could certainly turn that over to him, and I believe he's got his hand raised, and here he is. So
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Good evening. My name is Raj Mathur. I'm with Hammett and Edison. We are an independent consulting engineering firm located in Sonoma, and I am a licensed professional electrical engineer in the state of California. And our job as engineers is to evaluate sites like these for radio frequency or RF exposure compliance with the FCC standard. We've completed that evaluation for this site. We find that it will comply with the FCC limit. To answer Commissioner Hernandez's question, we looked at all the nearby buildings, including the abundant Grace building. We find that the maximum calculated RF exposure level at that building is 13% of the FCC limit, which means that it is about 8 times below the limit. And just for completeness, the maximum RF exposure level at any nearby building is 33% of the limit, and that occurs at the Boys and Girls Club that's located across the street. So levels there are calculated to be about 1/3 of the FCC limit. And the reason it's a little bit higher at the Boys and Girls Club, even though the Boys and Girls Club is further away, is because of the building height. That building is taller, and how the antennas work is that they are directional in nature. In that there's if you could see the radio frequencies energy coming out of the antenna, it goes out in a narrow beam out towards the horizon. So we're looking at it. The AT&T antennas are proposed about 58 feet above ground. So most of the energy is concentrated 58 feet above ground. going out towards the horizon. And so what that typically means is that the closer, the higher you are, the taller the building is, the higher the exposure level will be at that building. And I'll stop there. Hopefully that makes sense, but I'm happy to elaborate on any of those items.
Can you just tell me, with the taller tower, what is the increase in radio frequency emissions and contact with people? I mean, I assume it's over a farther distance and more intense. Is that correct? Like, what's the numbers?
Yes. So the numbers I gave you are cumulative numbers. So they account for both the existing T-Mobile facility at the new location and the proposed AT&T operation. And so again, the cumulative value, the maximum at any nearby building is 33% of the FCC limit, which is about a third of the limit. And the maximum at the Abundant Grace building is 13% of the FCC limit.
Okay, maybe we can come back to my question. Vice Chair Hernandez?
Yeah, just to follow up on Chair Gorn's question, I think the specific point he's trying to make is, given where we're at today and where we're going to be at when this project is completed, what's the increase in the impact to the community from an allowable FCC standard perspective?
Yeah, and so the levels are now below the FCC limit, and after the proposal will continue to be well below the FCC limit. And so if I'm understanding your question correctly, are you looking for a sort of a comparison between the existing levels and the proposed operation? Is that where you're going?
I think the question was, what's the relative increase in exposure to the community? That I think is the follow-up to Chairman Gorn's question. I have some other follow-up questions related to that.
Okay, that's a good question. I don't immediately have an answer to it because we haven't studied the existing operation. We studied just the proposal. So I know I can address the exposure levels from the proposal. You are correct in general that there would be an increase just because presently there's one operator and in the future there'll be two. For a rough estimate, it probably double the exposure level. But again, I haven't studied the existing operation, so I can't give you exact numbers on that.
I appreciate you going out on a limb and giving us something that helps the layman understand what we're doing here. So thank you for that, and it's greatly appreciated. The exposure to the gym, is this at the ground level if I'm sitting at the gym attending a game, or is this if I'm sitting on the roof fixing it? Help me understand this 1/3 exposure level. Just again, as a layperson, I kind of get it, but just help me understand. Is it the whole gym? Is it the people who sit in the back corner of the gym, or is it somebody who's fixing the roof?
Yeah, good question. This would be on the roof of the gym, and so we do a worst case evaluation anywhere on the building, and this is on the roof. If you were to look at, inside the gym, as a practical matter, the signal has to go through the building. It's got to, that'll attenuate it, and so inside the building is going to be a small fraction of that 33%. But again, I'm giving you worst case numbers here, just so you have a clear idea of what the worst case situation might be.
Well, thank you. And as my kids watch Half Moon Bay trounce everybody in the NorCal Championships later this year, they'll appreciate posting all their pictures with their T-Mobile service. Thank you for getting that up and running. I have no other questions.
I'd like to object to that, then, Mr. Hernandez, being a NorCal guy. Thank you.
Before we close public comment, can I ask Jason Osborne? I understand you've studied the numbers, 33% of what's allowable. We're not going to approve or disapprove based on it, but can you look at what the current emissions are and tell me what the increase might be? Do you have that information?
Let me see if the original report that we ran provided existing.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me take a quick look here. Just give me 1 minute, please.
So should I close public comment and come back to that?
Yeah, well, I can answer any other questions if
I think we're done. Does anybody else have any other questions? No, I think we're done.
Commissioner Benjamin, you're muted.
I apologize. Thank you. Through the chair, I just mentioned I wasn't sure if there were any members of the public who wanted to speak. If they did, we want to be sure to give them that chance before we close.
I thought we did that.
I have no further hands risen.
Okay, so I'm going to close public comment, and we can maybe get the answer offline on Jason or later.
Yeah, it looks okay. Let me keep reading this just to make sure. I'm going to send this over to Raj. Sorry, guys.
So close public comment and deliberations. Vice Chair Hernandez.
I'm first of all, I mean, we live in an era where we all need good cell phone coverage, and we know how unreliable our Comcast and other landline providers can be for our internet access. So I applaud the project. And like I said, I've got a bunch of T-Mobile users in my household, and not me, but the others who will benefit from the improvement in service. I also think I like the applicant's willingness to move to a natural gas generator. There's some sound issues we can address. We'd love to make it quieter when we do have to run it, but it's a better solution than diesel. And if I look at, there's two big antennas in Half Moon Bay. This is the smaller antenna. And, I've noticed it a few times, but it's not the one that sort of stands out. And even at its new adjusted height, either as a eucalyptus or a lone pine, I think it'll blend in. And I'm supportive of disguising it as a lone pine. I think it works, and it's a go-away green, or it's a go-away design that people aren't going to notice on a day-to-day basis. So I'm supportive of the project, and I like the applicant's willingness to work with the city to address our concerns. And so if we can do the Pine project, that would be my first preference.
Commissioner Reddick.
Thank you, Chair Gorn. I wanted to compliment staff and the applicant on working towards the staff report that we have received. Doug, you did a very good job of explaining the constraints that a local municipality like ourselves are under, given the fervor with which our federal government has supported the advance of the telecom industry over the last couple of decades. And your description of the benefit of finally documenting this installation more clearly with a coastal development permit and a use permit makes a lot of sense. I also see the having walked around that property yesterday, the location of the current tower and the proposed location for the new one are pretty good. In fact, it's hard to imagine, in my mind, better locations for such things. They're not up on a ridge line or on top of the Bike Works new building or something like that. I think it'll do the community and that particular neighborhood a good service by anchoring the new tower among those mature Monterey cypress. And it seems pretty clear to me that the disguising the pole as a tree is better than not doing that, and the pine tree alternative is probably the best we can do. So I would certainly support that. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Reddick. Commissioner Benjamin has his hand up.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues who just spoke. I also want to add my thanks to the applicant for helping us work through the scheduling issues that Doug summarized in the early part of his presentation, and thank Doug for powering through to get us such a really, really good staff report on this. I remember the first time a cell phone tower came to the Planning Commission in the 90s. And I remember the angst I felt about where it would be approved, and the number of people who came with pitchforks and pine knots to express their concerns about having this on the coast. And I think it's a sign of the times that no one is here to speak to this item directly. I do think it makes sense to ask the questions that the chair and vice chair have asked concerning radiation and the potential absorption. And I was satisfied with the answer. I also am an engineer, so I can appreciate the arguments that suggest to me that after attenuation, it really feels quite safe. And in any event, it can't be material to our decision. We've been foreclosed from giving much thought to that. And that's clear from the recitals and the conditions. I too am happy with the pine. We're going to have to listen to the noise during the generator tests. Generators have to run periodically. So if there's an appropriate time, Doug, that it makes sense to have the tests run, that would have a minimal impact. That's the sort of thing that I think can be worked out during, during the permit building process. I'm not asking you to pull a time out of your hat right now, but I'm hopeful that we can do that. And I would hate to see a proliferation of exotic invasive eucalyptus antenna coming into the area. So pine is just fine with me. Thanks again for the work, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Doug, I see your hand up, but let me get to Commissioner Polgar first, if you would. Thank you.
Well, Doug, if you want to address, was it written reference to Commissioner Benjamin's comments?
I just want some clarification on the generator noise. I can do it now or later.
Actually, I was going to echo all of my fellow commissioners' comments. I hadn't been aware of the generator noise as a issue or anything, so maybe that is something to get clarification on. But I am supportive of the project. I will admit there was a part of me that, I would prefer be more supportive of the pine, although there's a perverse part of me that's interested in the eucalyptus just to see if monarchs like it, but which could be interesting. But anyways, no, I do want the pine, and I am supportive of the project and very appreciative of staff and the applicants' hard work to bring this forward so completely. So thank you.
Doug, diesel noise.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page with Commissioner Benjamin on this. And I think there's a couple of ways of approaching the noise issue. One is the manufacturers do provide, noise data for, so many feet from the generator. And then most of the manufacturers have essentially a noise attenuation unit that fits around the outside that reduces it X decibels. And so one approach would be that we review the manufacturer's data and see what their sort of off-the-shelf fix is and go with that, subject to community development director approval. The other direction, which I think Jason had mentioned that you were going on, was that once it's in place, we test it with a decibel meter and make sure that it meets the city noise standards, essentially at the property line. I think either approach would be good. The advantage of doing it sort of up front is the generator hasn't been installed and we have a pretty good idea that it's going to comply before it's installed. So I just want to throw out, there's a couple of ways we could approach that.
Through the chair.
Yes, Commissioner Benjamin.
Thank you. So I was not advocating a sound meter test after installation. This is a Generac natural gas generator. It's going to make noise. My neighbor installed one across the street. It was pretty loud. He put a zombie box on top of it, and it got a lot quieter. So I think that's an example of one of the products that can attenuate the noise when thing is running. And I don't have any doubts that, for the few seconds that it has to run to keep its bearings oiled and to make sure it's functioning properly periodically is going to be such a small fraction of the time that I can't believe it would violate the C&E levels. I'm just thinking it might not be something we want to do at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, some kind of appropriate conditions around that seem like they might be desirable. There's going to be some measurement at, so many decibels of sound pressure at 1 meter. Since it's going to be right next to a building, that's going to be an understatement for the sound pressures that are actually going to be experienced, because it's going to bounce off that wall and add, 6 decibels or something like that, maybe 3 decibels. I'd have to go back and do the math. But ultimately, we do the best we can. If a fuel cell is not feasible, a natural gas generator is going to be quieter or less polluting. It's going to be a beneficial nuisance, and I support it as such. I hope that helps.
Thank you. So, Doug, just to be clear, the arborist report is not in the resolution and would need to be included. And is that also true of the non-diesel generator backup?
The arborist, the changing of that condition number C.17 is not in the resolution that you received. The text of it is in the PowerPoint. If you want to go through it line by line, we can, or if you want to just defer to staff, we will put it in. We do not have a specific condition about generator noise. Again, if you want to defer to staff, we've written these kind of conditions before. It would be essentially based on the manufacturer's specifications and potential attenuation through, enclosures and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. And Jason Osborne has his hand up. Do I need to open public comment to include him? Yes. Commissioner Benjamin, you also have your hand up. Is that from before?
I beg your pardon. I was tardy in lowering it.
Okay. So I'm going to reopen public comment so that Jason Osborne can talk to us.
Yeah, I just wanted to address your question initially about the existing EMF. I was unable to find the existing EMF, but I'm happy as a condition of approval to do a pre-test before we install. Obviously, we've got the numbers. I mean, I'm happy to do it. Obviously, we adhere to federal standards existing, I would suspect, and my guess would be it's probably double just because we're adding another carrier, but I'm more than happy to provide a test as a condition of approval and provide that to staff. I have no problem doing that at all, for full visibility and transparency.
Well, that would be great.
No problem.
That would be really good. Does anybody else have anything that they want to talk about? Oh, I have to close public comment. Here we go. It is now closed. Does anybody else have anything they want to say or make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the project before us.
I'm prepared to support that. I wonder if we need to be careful we capture the amended language about the arborist report that Doug just talked to us about.
And
Vice Chair
through
Hernandez, do you want to amend that? Yeah, Winter?
I was just going to say through the chair, if you also wanted to include the condition that Jason Osborne just volunteered, and I'm not sure if there was another condition that Doug and Commissioner Benjamin were talking about noise, but you might want to clarify if those were in addition to the resolution.
I'd like to amend my resolution to include the noise abatement analysis by the applicant as part of the project. I'd like to amend my resolution to include the arborist report's recommendations and also make the recommendation that the applicant move forward with the pine tree design.
Through the chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Benjamin?
Yeah, would the maker of the motion also consider substituting the text of C17 that was presented on the slide in lieu of C17 was presented in the staff report?
Vice Chair?
Yes.
I will second the motion if this was a new motion. I think he withdrew it and made a new one. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
I second the revised motion. Thank you.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, wait, Commissioner Polgar.
Through the chair, can we, I have a question about, I'm a little confused about the motion because my understanding, I understood the switching the tree arborist measure. I understood the point about that Jason Osborne offered for the testing the existing RF levels. Then there was another one, but then the one that I didn't get is actually the noise. I thought that what we were seeking was the inclusion of a natural gas generator versus the diesel, or is that already in there and I misunderstood?
No, I think Vice Chair Hernandez might have misspoken because it's the RF test that Jason Osborne was talking about.
I will amend my statement. I did misspeak. So I would like to include the comment about supporting the arborist report. We want to support the applicant's position on RF analysis and then proceed with the lone pine design as opposed to a eucalyptus.
Would the maker of the motion consider adding substituting C17 condition that was presented in the slide and clarifying that we opt for the natural gas generator as opposed to the diesel generator?
I think we've already said that we want to support the natural gas generator in the staff report. I support that as a recommendation. And then using the staff report language versus the slide language is also something that is included in my recommendation.
Wait, I apologize through the chair. I think you meant the reverse. You're substituting the slide language for the text of the staff report.
Yeah, sorry, I misheard you earlier. Yes.
And finally, to the extent that we can attenuate the noise, that would be nice. So that's advisory. I'm not asking for specific language, Commissioner Polgar. I second, those changes are acceptable to the seconder.
So everyone's clear on this motion, correct? Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Okay, we have a roll call. Commissioner Polgar?
Yes.
Commissioner Reddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez?
Yes.
And Chair Gordon?
Yes, please.
That's been approved 5-0.
Great. So I guess we move on to director's report. Is that right? Do you have a director?
Well, I guess this is my my opportunity to shine.
Take it away.
Yeah, Jill is, from what I understand, she anticipates she'll be back for the first meeting in February. I believe that's on the 8th. In terms of other items, I would note that On December 14th, the Planning Commission, this is just a reminder, they continued the Poplar Street Improvement Project to the first meeting in February 8th, and it will be coming back. I don't know the details, just a heads up, it's coming back. Also want to note, I think just that the city released the CEQA document, the initial study, mitigated negative declaration for the city's Corporation Yard project at 880 Stone Pine. I believe Bridget's forwarded copies to all the commissioners, but since we got a public venue, just make sure that people know it's out there. It can be downloaded from the city's website. We're still in the comment period, so just get that out there. I believe Jill or Bridget may have forwarded some training opportunities for the commissioners to consider. Take a look at those. We do have other things come up, so it depends on what your interests are. And that's all I have to report tonight.
Thank you, Doug.
The ISM, just to clarify, the ISMND that he's talking about was submitted to you guys on Friday with the packet notice that I sent you. So there's a link there to go to the website. The file is fairly big to just email, so just go to the website. If you have any trouble, just contact me and I'll help you through it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah. And do planning commissioners have anything to report? Commissioner Polgar.
Yes, so I do, as you might have gathered from my reluctance to take on the vice president or vice chair role. So I am very sad to say that I am going to be resigning from the Planning Commission, and my last meeting will be the one on February 8th, and I'm very sad about this, but I think many of you know that before joining the Planning Commission, which was 3 years ago now, I was very involved with Coastside Land Trust. And so now is just a very important time for me to shift back to that earlier role. And in doing so, I can't remain on the Planning Commission. I need to step down. But I want to let all of you know, and I apologize, Chair Gord, because I sent my resignation letter to formerly Chair Ruddock today. So not knowing how things would go tonight. So but I just want to say it's just been an incredible honor and pleasure to serve on this commission with you all. And I am just grateful for this opportunity and for all of the wonderful support from just a superb community development and planning staff and Winter. and you know, I've been grateful for it. It's a wonderful experience. I've learned so much. I feel very proud of having been part of just the incredible accomplishments the Planning Commission has made over the past 3 years. So a big thank you to you all, and I will miss getting to have these discussions with you and to work on these projects and the work of the city. But unfortunately, it's just the timing is kind of this is a shift I need to make right now. So I just want to let you all know.
Through the chair.
So I am genuinely sorry to hear that news, but I'm sure that others also have something to say. Vice Chair Hernandez.
I'd like to thank Commissioner Polgar for her service and her unyielding advocacy for science and the facts, and her advocacy as a planner in this role. She's really helped us raise our game across the board. And while I'm sad to see her leave the Planning Commission, I'm delighted to see her take on a different role in our community with Coastside Land Trust, which is an important institution on the coast side.
And And Commissioner Reddick.
Oh, Sarah, I too, I am so appreciative of what you brought to this commission over the last 3 years. I was often in awe of the expertise in conservation and more broadly resource issues that you brought to it. Half Moon Bay is much the better for your participation and leadership in those areas. I think of so many opportunities or so many incidents with the development of the new land use plan, and then in more recent times where you've made a huge and positive difference. So we're very sad to lose you, but I'm sure you're taking a wise course, and you'll continue to be a great asset for the community and CLT specifically. So best of luck and see you around.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Thank you. Yeah, this is sad. Every commissioner at this table brings something important and valuable to the table, and I am genuinely fond of all of you. But Sarah, I feel like in you I found a kindred spirit. You have this incredible focus for detail, different details than I think about, and I always felt so grateful when you were picking stuff off. And then you have this much better ability than I do to boil back up to the top and find a way to say it that doesn't sound abrasive. So I've learned a lot from you, and I'm gonna try to keep the lessons. So thank you very much for that. Many years ago, the Coastside Land Trust used to be called the Half Moon Bay Open Space Trust. I was one of the founding members of that board, and I could see the conflict between it and serving on the Planning Commission, and that I could not serve both of them well. So I understand the conflict you're facing. I made a different choice, but I respect the choice you make. And the good news is that we'll be able to kibitz with you without worrying about violating the Brown Act. So, there's a lot to be said for this for us too. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you early and often. Even though you're not on the Planning Commission, we will be pressing you into service. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also am very much look forward to, I'm not going anywhere. I'm clearly doing this to be able to take on a role that's still very engaged in the community. And so, yes, I do look forward to working with you. But I will miss this, and I echo your words. I am very fond of all of you. So thank you for everything. Fellow commissioners and staff. I really am grateful. So.
Well, we're going to miss you. It's going to be a harder job now, but we'll see if we can do that. I would also like, not to end on a sad note, I would like to personally thank Jill Ekus for making the first meeting here as chair non-controversial. That's much appreciated. Thank you. Anybody else? Jimmy.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to follow up on the director's report. Great job at the limelight, Doug, tonight. Thank you. On the training thing, we got a request to feedback on ideas about what training we might or may not be interested in. And I wanted to see if there were other commissioners who were interested in the Yosemite conference. I'm trying to plan my schedule for the early spring. And I've been to one of these. I think they're good. But if there are other commissioners who would like to go, I clearly would rather step back and give other commissioners the opportunity. So Rick or Commissioner, Chair Gorn or Commissioner Ruddick, if those are interesting to you, I want to be sure to hear it. So this seemed like the right forum since it came up in the report.
Commissioner Ruddick.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can go for it. I'm shying away from in-person gatherings like that for a little while longer.
And I'm still working through my schedule, so I'll let you take preference. I'll give you first choice, but I've got a fairly dynamic schedule at the moment.
And it sounds great, but that is the one weekend I can't go. So I can't do either one of them. And they both sounded really good, both of those. But that's not my weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Do we have anyone else? In which case, I think I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Leaving.
I start that.
Okay, so okay, sorry.
All right.
Yeah, it all happened so fast. Yeah, I can do a roll call quick. Commissioner
Okay.
Farrar,
Yes.
Commissioner Redditt,
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
and Chair Gordon.
Yes, please.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.